Michigan, as sloppy as they played in the special teams, they didn't deserve to win that game with how bad they played special teams wise. But they made up for it and then some with consistently being able to get stops on defense. That was the name of their game. That's what they've relied on all season long. And I think going into the Washington game, it's a huge part of why I think they're favored and why I really can't see a world in Washington beating Michigan. When you look at the matchups, I get that Washington has the best player on the field on their team, but this Michigan defense is different. And if they were able to contain Jalen Milroe, who's a great athlete, I'm pretty sure they'll be able to contain Michael Penix Jr. So, he'll make some plays, but I'm really looking forward to that matchup. And I thought that we got an awesome Rose Bowl game and Sugar Bowl game to follow that up.
Yeah.
Let's one score games in both games.
Yeah, we'll get into the Sugar Bowl too. I will say because Zach's asking, and it is important. Michigan currently is a 4.5-point favorite for the national championship. I thought Texas played really good football. They had 2 or 3 irredeemable mistakes. It was almost like the moment was too big for them. Unlike Michigan, where I felt like they rose to the occasion on those must-win situations, Texas was kind of fumbling the bag a little bit.
Washington played a damn near perfect game too.
And I was going to say that
Penix is he's the closest thing I've seen since Joe Burrow as a college football player. I mean, that was the 2019 LSU team. Joe Burrow, coolest, calmest, most clutch quarterback I've seen in a long time in college football. And Penix, it looked reflective.
They looked unstoppable.
He's just unfazed always. Yeah. It's never too big for him. And that does scare Michigan fans going to that game because he's the one thing, he's going to be locked in and he's not going to be phased. And he's going to have pressure thrown at him. He's seen pressure all year. He's been in big moments, close games all year long, and he's come out on top in every single one of those moments. And they're just like the underdogs of college football this year. I mean, Michigan can say they're Michigan versus everybody motto all they want, but Washington has dealt with just as much shit from the public, from the media, from people like you and me all year. I mean, dude, they beat Oregon in the regular season, and then going into play Oregon in the Pac-12 championship, they're a 10-point underdog. And then they beat them again. And then going into Texas, they're the underdog as a higher seed, and they beat them. They beat Texas. It's like this is just kind of what they've been doing. They have a great coach. They have a great culture. They have 3 NFL caliber receivers. They have a NFL caliber quarterback. They have a pretty damn good running back, although he is questionable with an ankle injury, but he's been great all year. They're tough on defense. They just, both teams seem like teams of destiny to me. And normally you only have one of those teams that everybody's like, well, how could they lose? Both these teams, you look at them it makes sense that both these teams would win. It just does. I wouldn't be surprised to see Washington hoist that trophy, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Michigan hoist that trophy. But with that being said, when you look at the actual matchups and stuff, I don't know about you, John. I mean, I know you probably want Michigan to win. I think Michigan will win, and I also, obviously want them to win, but I can't see a world where the matchups favor Washington enough where they actually pull it off. Michigan's just so good at the spots that Washington struggles with. I think Michigan neutralizes what Washington does best, and that's sling the ball.
Yeah, I think they'll be able to hang for the reasons you said. I think that the defensive line is going to be able to create a lot of pressure. And then that paired with the fact that Michigan's secondary is pretty damn good, I think they'll be able to hang with the powerhouse that is Washington's offense. And then I think Michigan just has the advantage in almost every matchup offensively. I think that Washington hasn't really seen a run game like Michigan, and I really think they just need to keep it simple, stupid, and just pretty much execute the same offensive game that they did against Bama and just fine.
You hit it on the head. Washington is not a top 30 defense in the country, right? We haven't seen someone win a national championship not having a top 30 defense in a very, very long time. What they do have is an electric passer and electric receivers, and they just have kind of a momentum to them and a cockiness to them. But when you look at matchups like you just said, John, Michigan running the ball, Washington not great stopping the run. That's a huge advantage, Michigan, right? Washington's best weapon is passing the ball. Very good down the field, vertical threats. They got receivers that make plays. They got a quarterback that gets the ball very accurately to them. Michigan's got locked up defensive backs. I mean, straight up man to man, leave them on an island, and they're making plays 95% of the time. Will Johnson's one of the best defensive players in the country, and he's not even draft eligible yet. Michigan's going to have a scheme. Jesse Minter is a great defensive coordinator. And he's going to have a scheme just like he had against Alabama against an athletic quarterback like Milroe. Similar scheme, different blitz packages. And what I honestly expect, John, is I expect Michigan to play with an extra defensive back a lot of the game. And they're going to use 4 or 5 guys, and they'll still get pressure on Penix. And what they'll do is they'll just stunt. Right? They'll stunt. They'll blitz a linebacker. They'll drop a linebacker. They'll blitz
exactly
a safety.
what they
They'll
did
drop a
against
defensive
Bama.
end.
Yeah.
And they'll do that again, and they had success with it. And I don't think Washington's offensive line can handle that. And that's the best way to stop Penix, is to get to him before he gets going. And if Michigan does that, I'm telling you, this game, it could get ugly. It could be a runaway with it type game.
Yeah, I don't want to get. I mean, just as you said, right? Like Michigan came off rusty, and so did Bama, right? I mean, and I think it's just naturally what happens when you go a month without playing football. But Michigan struggled to really wake up in some of those big moments in previous playoff matchups. Obviously, they got rolled by Georgia, and the TCU game is one that they should have won, and they didn't, because I think they failed to rise to the occasion. And so, while in my head, I'm like, man, Michigan theoretically should roll this team. And I think there's a lot of arguments you can make that support that. But I think that overall, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because, like you said, Washington hasn't been counted out basically the entire season, that they're not legit, basically because of the conference that they play in. And it's just, you don't want to do that, right? That's poison. You don't want to put too much emphasis on that.
You don't want to jinx it.
Exactly. And if Michigan's thinking the same thing, they're not going to play at the level that they're capable of playing at, and that's a problem too, right? And I know they're going to be locked in, but
John, I have something that will reassure you, because I can tell you're a little bit worried. You don't want to jinx it. I know what you're thinking. You don't want to say it live, because you want to wait till everything's settled and then brag, right? Which is, I respect it out of you.
It's my nature, right?
I respect it out of you. And for those of you that are like, screw this guy, he picked Alabama last week, why is he so strong on Michigan? I've been saying the winner of that game was going to win the national title since the final results came out, right? Yeah. So, yes, I was wrong about last week, but I feel very strongly about Michigan this week. I would have felt very strongly about Alabama this week as well had they won the Rose Bowl. But I'll reassure you. You said Michigan hasn't showed up in big playoff games before, and that's true. They were
until this week. Yeah.
Well, and honestly, they didn't even show up really great until they could have played a lot better. I'll say that, right? There was definitely, like we said, some sloppiness. I think that sloppiness is out of the system. Right now, they're back to a routine schedule. They had a normal practice week. They're coming off of a game. They went to their physical therapy. They went to their trainers. They went to their workouts. They went to practice, film. Their travel day is the same. Like, everything's the same. It's just a bigger stakes game. And so I think you'll see a cleaner, more fundamentally sound from the get-go Michigan football team. And they'll do, I think, what Michigan's done all year, and that's control the clock, run the ball, play very sound defense. And anytime they do give up some momentum, they usually take it back by stopping a team in the red zone or forcing a turnover or getting a sack, right? That's what I anticipate to see happening. And so I hope that reassures you that playoff, like, sloppiness that Michigan historically has had is true, but that's, I think, because of the month off.
Yeah, I think
they didn't handle that month off well in the past, and I think that they got over that hump, and now it's back to normal time. Also, Washington's second best player, the running back, is out. Right, the huge part of their offense. He's been great all year for them. He's out, so their running game that already was going to struggle against this Michigan defense is going to struggle now even more. I mean, are they going to try to run the ball with Michael Penix? He hasn't really done a lot of that since his knee injuries, right? He's been more of just a kind of a pure passer, scramble a little bit, but they're going to ask a lot of him in this game. And if he doesn't play damn near perfect football, I'm talking making plays with his legs, with his arm, down the field, tight window throws, he's got to be perfect for Washington to win this football game. And that's asking a lot of anybody. You know, like JJ doesn't have to play perfect to win this game. He's just got to play average or above average.
Yeah, 100%. I think the play, and speaking of, right, the other playmakers that complement McCarthy, that offensive line, those receivers, but Blake Corum's. I think Mark and I talked about this. He's a Michigan player that probably should go up there with some of the greats in Michigan history. I mean, we're talking a name that's gonna kind of have some reverb to it for a long time, like Charles Woodson, like Jabril Peppers, like some of those other legends that have played in the maize and blue. I think Corum's going to be one of those guys. He represents everything that Michigan football is about.
John, if they win the Natty, when you mention the words Michigan football, the first three names that will come to your mind will be Tom Brady, Charles Woodson, and Blake Corum. I think he jumps over Desmond Howard. I think he jumps over Jabril Peppers. I think he jumps over some of these guys that they've had. And, I mean, if they win this national championship, he's right there. And also, the slander that J.J. McCarthy, I don't get what it is. I mean, J.J. McCarthy is 26-1 as a starter. I get that he's not the best quarterback in the country, but what this kid is doing for this program, what he's done for his teammates, the kind of leader he's been since day one, since before he started games, when he was a backup.
Lateral pass, that
incredible play,
caught. I mean,
incredible play.
There's not a whole lot of guys.
But also, John, he's just a perfect face of a university. Like, totally. I don't understand why anyone can go out there and slander this guy. Like, give Blake Corum his credit. He's the icon of this team. He's the soul of this team. But and he's the legs of this team. But JJ McCarthy is the mind of this team, and he's the spirit of this team. Like, it's contagious. And I went to a few practices during the season, and I kind of see how these coaches and players interact with him. And he's just like, I mean, everybody just has a respect for him, and he's not like, when you treat a kid like that, his age normally gets to their head, right? Like, they'll have an ego. They'll just, it's almost impossible for them not to develop some kind of. He's just an unselfish, football loving kid, and he wants to win, and he's happy where he is, and he feels like he's where he belongs, and everybody around him has bought into it and believes in him, and his talent shows time and time again, and he doesn't try to do too much. John, one of the craziest stats I saw in, third and I think it was 7 or longer. I think you might have sent me the stat on Twitter. JJ McCarthy's like 78% in his career.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah, no, I think the biggest reason why people discredit him as a quarterback versus, some of the other guys that are probably going to get drafted this next year is because of the fact that Big Ten football, it's not like a quarterback gun show kind of offensive system. We know that, right? Like, they don't look to pass first. They're not looking to throw bombs downfield. They rely heavily on their run game. Example, they beat Penn State without throwing a single pass in the second half, and people are going to bash J.J. McCarthy for that? Like, do you think that
And by the way, Penn State's defense is 10 times better than Washington's.
Right. So I struggle. I think a lot of football fans that watch JJ think, where are those bomb passes that Penix or Williams or some of these guys can make? Like, where are the crazy scrambles? Where is that? Guys, like, that's not the system he's in. And by the way, the number of NFL players that those are the talents that people are looking for that make them successful is a pretty short list right now. It's Lamar Jackson, it's Josh Allen. That's about all I can think about as far as quarterbacks using their legs and being able to throw bombs downfield. A lot of these guys that are successful right now, Tua, Jared Goff, what are they doing? They're sitting in a pocket. Sitting in a pocket with a good offensive line, leaning on the run game, and completing passes in important third down situations.
That's the only consistent system to win football games. You're absolutely right.
Totally.
You're gonna like Josh Allen and Lamar are gonna win some games just unorthodox, right? Making plays with the legs, scrambling. But most of the time, consistent winning football is running the football, play action, and playing sound defense. It's a very simple formula. You look at the best teams in the NFL, you look at the best teams in college football, and that is normally what they do. And I just think that everything favors Michigan because that's what they do, and it's not necessarily what Washington has done to get here. Washington has slung the ball all over the place. Penix has made insane plays. I mean, he's just shown incredible nuts this entire season. Like, he just doesn't care what people say. He doesn't care what the moment is. He's going to execute, and it should be a great matchup. I don't think we've even said it yet, but I'm going to be at the game. So
yeah, right. That's big news to drop. Mark is
I will be at the game. I was generously gifted tickets from one of our former guests who's now with the Wolverines, early enrollee, practicing with them. I talked to him on the phone. He's doing very well. He's excited. What a cool start to his career. But I will be there, so you'll get some firsthand content. I will be riding with the Wolverines. I will be betting on the Wolverines, and I will try to undo what I did last week, which was bet against them. and talk shit about them for a week. And now I'm flipping 180. I do believe in them. I'm not just doing this because I'm from Michigan. I do believe in Michigan. I think they're the better team. I think this is their year, team of destiny. And I'm really excited. I honestly am. It should be a really good game.